I've been waiting quite a long time to do this video because I've had to think about it for a long time. And what I'm going to address is a subject that's really common out there right now, particularly in conspiracy circles, but also in circles that are just contemplating the nature of reality. And that is the notion that this is nothing but a simulation, that our life and our reality is nothing but a simulation. I want to respectfully, but also vehemently disagree with that statement after having given it a lot of thought. First of all, we have to look at the word simulation itself. What does that mean? It means it's an imitation of a process or an event in life. It's an imitation. A simulation is like a computer modeling of something. It's an imitation or simulation to see what kind of effect you're going to find at the end. So this is not a simulation. This is not an imitation. This is our life. And I understand where the sentiments are coming from. And the people who first started waving the flag that not all is as it seems and we're living in a simulation were wonderfully brave souls to get out there and say, hey, people, not everything is as it seems. And there are a lot of hidden forces and players out there you're not aware of. Totally legitimate. This is something that the entire mass of people on Earth need to be aware of. And there is truth in that. Absolutely. We'll get to that in a little bit. But taking it so far as to say, and you're nothing but a pawn, no, I don't agree with that at all. And I thought there was a wonderful point made in the film Free Guy, where he was called an NPC, which is a non-playable character, and he was just a pawn in the game, in a video game that was created by psychopath and played aggressively around the world by people that wanted to win the game. And this poor guy's living like Groundhog Day over and over, same old thing. Now, some of us feel like that. That's true. And that is a process of having found ourselves into habituation of different kinds. But that does not mean that that's our total reality at all. And if you haven't seen the movie Free Guy, it's a fun, feel-good, adventurous film, but there's a really deeper point to the whole thing. So, no, we are not pawns. We're not non-playable characters. We are the players. First of all, let's address why I think this came to be. In fact, I did a recent interview with Darius J. Wright on the notion that we're just upon layer upon layer upon layer of realities that actually have no mass. But it's our reality. It feels like this computer, the book under the computer, this desk, me. In our reality with the senses that we chose to be born into, in this density of reality, this is mass for us. Now, if you want to start arguing it out on a quantum level, which that is a lot of what happens in the explanations about this being a simulation, yes, it's true. If you look at us, and I've said this before, on an atomic level, if you want to get into quantum physics, some of you are already fully aware that there is nothing material here. There's no material here. If you were to look at our atomic structure as beings from other dimensions can and do, they can walk right through us. There are people within this dimension who have mastered reality and the understanding of what reality is and the understanding that this is non-material in nature, and they've learned how to do what seem to be impossible, miraculous feats. A lot of these are, for example, some of the very highly trained yogis and Buddhist monks, for example, people who've led sequestered lives, who spent their entire lifetimes dedicated to understanding mastery over the material world and can levitate, they can walk through things, they can shape shift, fly places, go out of the body, meet you somewhere else, be in two places at once. Yes, all that is possible. It's true. Now, most of us have not devoted our life to that. Most of us are living lives where we're interacting with others, and our lessons come through relationship and challenging ourselves and incarnating into challenging situations. So that the reality is, there's not much here. You can just look up an atomic model, and you'll see it's like the sun with the planets spinning around it in our cosmos. That's how much space versus mass is in any given atom. It's arguably even less than that. So if you can imagine all of that space in the cosmos with these little dots of lights called planets and stars, which are so tiny and minuscule when you look at it relative to the space. I mean, just to give you an example, from the Earth to the moon is, I looked it up, about 283,000 miles, okay? 10 times or so what it takes to go circumference of the Earth. However, if you go all the way out to Saturn, you're looking at 815 million miles. And yet that's still in that tiny little cosmic solar system of ours, that little atomic structure, what could look like an atomic model of sorts. I mean, that there are a lot of arguments on that, but we're just going to keep it really simple. That being the case, what's left? Well, what's left is consciousness. The entire universe is made up of consciousness. You're made up of consciousness. You have conscious awareness. So the whole notion that you are just a player in someone else's game and you're being manipulated through every step of your life is, to me, one of the most necessary to know there are problems. I've already said that. But that is an incredibly disempowering position to come from, because what's happening now is humanity is beginning to wake up to the full extent of understanding we are multidimensional. We have vastly connected high intelligence within this, if you want to call it, hierarchy of our own multidimensional nature, these pancake stacks of realms and dimensional fields within realms and dimensional fields. That is what we exist within. We happen to be in a density that is arguably moving from third to fourth, perhaps already in more or less the fourth dimensional field. And again, depends who you're talking to and how you want to argue that point out. But the point is, it's a fairly dense field within the strata of all the different frequencies. And some are so fine, there literally isn't even a speck of mass left. There's nothing but consciousness. Some of the people that are on this planet come from these realms where there's nothing but consciousness. And they've come and incarnated into bodies, as Dr. Linda Backman's work will show. She demonstrates this quite well as a psychologist who started having people saying, I'm not sure where I am, but it's not Earth. And they began explaining completely different realities to her. But this is Dolores Cannon, same thing. Many, many people who work in the world of the mind and hypnosis in particular start seeing this phenomena coming up, is that people are relating to something that seems to be even pre-physical, pre-Earth. You might be one of those people that is a hybrid of some kind. Most of us are a hybrid of some kind. There are people who are more accustomed to being on Earth, who have been on Earth in physical bodies for a much longer time than other people that are here who are trying it on for size. But one thing I don't want to run from in this story that allows people to say this is nothing but a simulation and you're just a pawn. How's that make you feel, by the way? Probably not too good, probably depressed. And this isn't a feel-good party. It's just not real. It's not accurate, which is why I chose to speak up on this. Yes, there have been players that have come here from long ago, some would argue from the very beginning, who have exerted influence. Some have exerted a very positive influence and have been very helpful to the development of our species, and who come repeatedly. We talk about this in Freddie Silva's work. They're called the Shining Ones. Whenever there is a tough time happening historically, whenever there's been some kind of major disaster or mass extinction, these beings show up and they start helping people remember, put back together what they knew before, and start moving forward to build life again. And this has happened, as we know, several times on this planet. It happens throughout the universe because Earth herself, Gaia, goes through her own process of shaking it off and reinventing herself. And her own frequencies are responding to those prevailing cosmic frequencies I've talked about several times. And her own growth is to move forward and advance her multidimensionality, taking this particular octave up a little less dense. That requires our conscious awareness, our consciousness, to vibrationally stay in step with the Earth in order to continue incarnating here. I'm not going to go into the story of what happens if we don't do that, because everybody watching this is working on their consciousness and is doing that. So let's just go with that for now. At the same time, we have had beings, as you know, I've done many, many interviews with people on the beings that have tried to thwart us. And in addition to that, now, I can say without exception, every channeled entity that I've spoken to, or groups of entities, have stated, they feel comfortable stating now that, yes, you have been manipulated for a very long time. And it appears that the game is to keep this splendid species known as humanity from fully waking up. Well, one easy way to do that is to tell you're nothing but a non-playable character, a pawn in someone else's simulation. So that's one way to do it. That'll keep us down. And yeah, you might be angry and say, let's fight free of that. Well, I'm just saying you are free of that already. You just have to take the reins and choose where you're going to model it. So getting back to the notion, there's no physical reality. It's made up of consciousness, conscious awareness, and mass and individuated. You and me each have our own consciousness. And the way our emotions and our mind go that is what our external creation is going to look like. Now, on one hand, you could even do something as simple as look around you right now, wherever you are. This is part of your creation, whether you're at home, whether you're at work, wherever you are watching this video. This is part of your conscious creation. The choices you've made have put you in a circumstance that have led you to whatever this environment is. You may absolutely love it. You may say, God, I'm so happy. You may say, this sucks. I hate this environment. Either way, your own processes of navigating through life have put you there. It hasn't been that you've been a pawn in someone else's game. Again, caveats here. You could say, when you're looking at the cabal that's controlling us, the cabal starts with our own subconscious mind and subconscious programming. That's carried forward from lifetime to lifetime. We choose to incarnate into a very specific household, a society, a geographic location. And again, this is stuff I've talked about many times, but I can't overstate it enough. Can't stuff a soul in a body, meaning you chose to incarnate at this time into the geographic location and the family that you incarnated into. Every human being does. Now, they may have some guidance or assistance or a little nudge from their higher self, or with some guides on the other side saying, hey, this might be a better opportunity to learn this thing. This other vehicle about to be born might be a better opportunity over there. And we do have choices. But we generally tend to stick within a particular soul group, and it could be a very large soul group that has roots all over the world. But nonetheless, we don't have to get drilled down too far there. We incarnate into this particular fabric of society and family structure and belief systems. I hope you're enjoying this video, because if you are, there are dozens more like it on my site, all supported by people like you. So if you'd like to keep this work rolling in and join our community, just click on the Patreon button at reginameredith.com. That also gives you access to insider commentary, my live book club, and other live events with special guests. So join in. Thanks. So that's our first influence. And some people become trapped there. You start living up to the expectations of what your church is telling you, what your family's telling you, what you're being told by the educational system, expectations of you, and you become so mired in everyone else's expectation of you that it can seem like you're a non-player in your own game, but it's not accurate. It's just that you as a soul have not chosen to work outside of that particular, you're not drawing outside the lines of that reality that you chose to incarnate into. But most of you watching this have already played with crayons drawing outside of the lines. So you know what I'm talking about. You do have a choice in all of this. So it can be a perception that our choices are small and limited. And certainly if we've chosen to incarnate into a region of the world, into belief systems that carry a lot of poverty with it, for example, and we have all done this, we've all had those incarnations, then you might feel that there's even less choice. But even in those, you'll find these shining lights, these way showers, this spontaneous eruption of creativity. And from within you, these spontaneous feelings or acts of love and loving kindness that just pour from the heart, and you find yourself acting upon them. Sometimes you don't even know why. This is not a character who is a pawn in someone else's game. This is a living, breathing, flesh version, we're encased in that for the moment anyway, version of a reality that we are continuously co-creating with each thought. To me, the challenge lies within how we're going to create the new reality where you don't have these bony fingers. I had meditation recently. It was, when I looked at it, it was kind of icky, but it gave me some important information, honestly. I wasn't really looking to have a chat with my guides. It just sort of happened. And the first thing I saw were these crooked, bony fingers reaching over the top of the earth, meaning those who are still trying to play it out, trying to control humanity. And those they're brittle. The fingers were brittle and starting to break at the joints, but they were still exerting some control over us. And then the message was, now the game is set to such a critical point that really they're going to get really reckless and careless the way they start playing things out. Now, might it affect us? Yes. I think all of us feel kind of a sense that of an edge, as though we truly are living in very unpredictable and chaotic times. That's true. We chose to be born into it. We chose to be part of that. We chose to be part of transforming these old ways where we've had control exerted over us in a negative way and positive, but we're speaking of the negative, and break free of that and then build something new. Well, that's a scary thought. That means the old systems, as I've talked about before, will have to crumble. They're going to have to transform healthfully, or they're going to have to crash and burn, and then we build them from the ground up. And we can see evidence of this all around us in relationships, everything. It feels like the field's on fire. Now, one of the things in that meditation that my guide showed me was that because of the inflamed state of the human emotions and mass, our emotions are creating a very highly inflamed, unstable field, and that's global. Some spots more than others, obviously. United States tension, you cut it with a knife right now. Everybody's inflamed and choosing sides, and it all comes down to each side having a fear that something bad's going to happen if the other one gets into office. That's just something bad. And that's partially because of the feeling that something bad's going to happen, period. And we've got to off it and label it somehow, right? So we have to put it on something. So we're hanging it on this election, politicians, etc. But the fact is, the field is simply unstable because it's coming in and ushering in huge, huge change. For us, this is huge change that the entire cosmos is going through. So we don't like change. We're afraid of change. So we're on edge. We don't know what's going to happen next. And then you have players with their bony little fingers reaching over the top of the planet who are going to try to pull a few fast ones on us. We don't know where, we don't know when, we don't know what they're going to look like, but we know one thing, that they will use whatever kind of technology is available. And there is a vast array of technology for incredibly dubious purposes. That's saying it lightly. We know that technology will be misused against humanity. This can happen on many fronts. For those of you who've been looking into it and studying over a long period of time, even if you've been watching my shows over the last 20 years, I've done shows on a lot of these. Just to name a few, so we're not ignoring the topic. You're looking at technology such as HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, Nick Begich's book from 20 years ago called Angels Don't Play This Harp is kind of a good place to start looking at that. So you're talking about vast arrays of microwaves that can be used to influence anything, including the weather, can destabilize portions of the Earth's crust. This is very powerful technology that has gained a lot in terms of its potency since those books were written, and that Alaska array was originally done and put together back in the early 2000s. So you got microwave technology, you have more plasma type of technology, psychotronic technology, which can come in a field or to an individual, mess with your minds. I talked to you about this recently, about some people become destabilized with psychotronic technology. This is around. All these things are very real. But if you can keep your own desires and thoughts clear, and I mean, if you want to see this healthier world based on compassion and care for each other come to fruition, and you want to be a player in the game, then what we're doing now is we're weaving our collaborative goodwill, help, these high positive vibrational thoughts, we're weaving them together. We may not even know who we're touching, but by simply projecting these really clean, high purpose desires as much as we possibly can, by creating that, again, watch Darius J. Wright's modeling of what these realities look like. Your thought forms are real. What you think is reality. That's the consciousness that lives between everything that appears to be as matter. So if we're going to create this new reality that we all say we're so desirous of, that we're all waiting for ETs to create for us, not going to happen, by the way, we have to do it ourselves, then we need to take responsibility for our heart, our feelings, our thoughts. And so, yes, surround yourself with people who have similar desires, who aren't out to blame anybody. Blaming isn't going to matter anymore. We know we're up against it. You can point fingers all you want. It's not going to do any good. Now, as a real player in this non-simulation, in this very real reality that we are living in and have chosen to live in, the way it's going to change is through those thoughts, those desires for something more beautiful, something more collaborative and generous and better. And so as things crumble down around, these bony fingers break off one digit at a time, we're going to be weaving this beautiful new fabric underneath. We're doing it by our collective thoughts and desires. Just keep it high, stay hopeful and positive. And I don't mean hopeful in a delusional sense. I mean hopeful in the sense that you have something to look forward to. You're creating it. You absolutely are going to inherit that thing that you've created. So that is a beautiful new fabric, almost like watching the old trees in a forest fall and having this beautiful new growth underneath. We're weaving that new growth together, this new fabric of this new society. And I wanted to say this because I don't like the words going out anymore, that we're pawns in someone else's simulation. Yes, there are influences. No, we do not have to obey. Yes, we have to break through some of our own internal subconscious programming. Absolutely. You know if you're stuck or not, you can feel it. Your life feels dull and flat. You can change one thing and the whole thing changes. Do one thing that feels like, yes, this feels so good to my heart. Just go do it. And you start watching the whole rest of your reality change by committing to one thing that your heart loves and makes you feel happy and productive, whatever that is. I have no judgment on what that might be. You know, whatever it is, if it has true love and desire and compassion behind it, it's going to be good. It can be anything. Build a fence, bake a cake, I don't care. Whatever it is, it's like, yes. And just keep having those moments of joyful creation. And I mean that in the sense of kind of like a subtle sense of joy where there's this just bubbling up from the solar plexus in the heart. That's where our intelligence is going. That's what's going to be leading us in the future. And we might as well start leading the way ourselves right now and showing others and ourselves what that can look like, what it can feel like, and what we can produce coming from that place, this subtle sense of joy within us by participating in things that are productive, healthy, caring, beautiful. I personally feel I have to keep an eye on the whole thing. Got to keep my feet on the ground, keep an eye on what's going on, ugly as some of it is. That's part of my job. I feel that's part of my dharma in life, but we don't all have to do that. If we want to just build that new fabric and just say, what you're doing up there isn't my business. You know, what you people are doing, the games you're playing, the corporations and the games they're playing, the stock market, the politics and all of it, you can opt out if you want to. You're not required to stay in it. But if you choose to stay in it, we have to not get overwhelmed and feel defeated and angry. We have to stay centered that it's our job to weave that new fabric underneath it and weave it with our children and family members and friends so that we are now producing the new reality that each one of us wants to inherit. At least that's what we say. We're the players that are going to create that new reality. So let the bony digits break off and stay in your happy zone as much as you can. And I don't say that blithely. I say it with meaning. Stay in your place of subtle sense of joy and care for others. And we're going to be okay because you are a player. we are co-creating the new reality, either consciously or unconsciously. I say, let's do it together consciously. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you might also want to consider joining Patreon, which allows me to keep all of this content free and available to everyone. And if you're looking for like-minded souls, you might also enjoy my online community called Our Neighborhood. Links to join are in the description.